You're thinking about moving to Bonney Lake and you want to know what it is going to cost you. That's good news because that is what I'm talking about today, so stay tuned. Hey everyone, I'm Lynea Carver. I am a born and raised Seattleite, proud resident realtor and lover of the Pacific Northwest. And welcome to my YouTube channel where we talk about all things related to living in and around Bonney Lake, Washington. If you want any more information about anything in this video or anything about the Pacific Northwest, book a call. My link is down there. Let's talk why people choose to live in Bonney Lake. The reality is we are situated just perfectly between Tacoma and Seattle, about 30 miles south of Seattle and 26 miles north of Tacoma. So it's super convenient for those who want to live outside of the city and still have easy access to both of our major metropolises. You also have to remember that the cost of living in any area can vary on a number of factors like the job market, the average salary, the real estate market of that area. The categories people ask me about the most are housing costs, which includes utilities, transportation costs, and food and grocery expenses. So those three are what I'm going to be discussing with you today. So in order to do that, I am going to show you this interactive map that I use. I love it. It's on bestplaces.net. It's a pretty cool tool if you want to explore the cost of living in any area and do some side-by-side comparisons of multiple cities, but we can save that for another day, or you can do it on your own. As you can see in Bonney Lake, the cost of living is 135.1 or 35.1% higher than the national average. Number one, let's look at housing and utilities costs. In Bonney Lake, real estate and property taxes are the biggest contributing factors to our cost of living index, which is 18.7% higher than Washington State, but 24% lower than Seattle. Compared to our closest neighbors like Puyallup, Orting, and Prairie Ridge, we are the highest with the exception of Lake Tapps, but mostly because in Lake Tapps, it's waterfront properties. Waterfront properties are always more expensive. It's important to make sure that your income can support these costs before deciding to move here. 85% of residents in Bonney Lake are homeowners. Homes for sale range from around $355,000 for a manufactured home all the way up to multi-million-dollar properties with lakefront views. There's even some islands for sale around here. The average price of a single-family home in Bonney Lake is just under $700,000, which is up 12% since last year. It's also higher than the national average by nearly 5%. There are tons and tons of new construction communities in Bonney Lake. Many of our neighborhoods have HOA dues. Now, depending on where you're at, the dues for a single family home can be as high as $175 a month in areas like Tahale, but in other areas, I see them range from $30 to $50 a month. Property taxes have grown so much here over the last few years. When I first moved to Pierce County, big selling point for me was the lower property taxes, but man, in the last couple of years, that has really changed. The county's average effective tax rate is 1.19%, and Bonney Lake is at the high end of that range at 1.09%. And like I said, property taxes have increased in the recent years, but these increases have primarily been the result of voter-approved levies to support things like the construction of new school buildings. General levies, which are always capped at 1% increase per year, have remained steady over the last few years. Let's compare that to King County, which is the home of Seattle. The average effective property tax rate is only 0.93%, which is technically lower, but it does feel like property taxes in King County are much higher because the average tax payment is much higher. On average, it's $4,611 in King County, but $3,217 in Pierce. And that's also because the average home price in Seattle is significantly higher. In fact, 56% higher than Bonney Lake. Now, on the other hand, if you want to rent, when you move to Bonney Lake, you'll want to be aware that the median rent is around $2,000 per month, which is a 66% increase over the past 12 months. So you should expect to pay about $1,795 a month for a one bedroom, $2,095 a month for a two bedroom, and prices go up for larger locations from there. Now, utilities. Let's go back to our chart. So taking a look at our chart, the total utilities cost of Bonney Lake is 72.9%, which is 17% lower than the national average and slightly lower than Washington State. On average, residents can expect to pay about $165 a month for electricity, $40 a month for natural gas, and depending on where your house is on the water map, your water bill can range drastically. I actually talk more about that in this video right here. See, the thing is, we have two water providers here, TPU and City of Bonney Lake. The City of Bonney Lake's water service area is on the plateau of Bonney Lake, and it provides water to about 38,000 people with over 13,000 residential and commercial connections. That's about 9 million gallons per day supplied by groundwater, which is pumped from two of our local falls, Victor Falls and Ranger Springs, and it also includes well water from two additional sites. The other water provider in Bonney Lake is TPU, or Tacoma Public Utilities, who supplies another 4 million gallons per day. The difference really between the two providers is pretty massive. Look at the difference between this Bonney Lake water bill for $273 and the same time period's water bill from TPU for $152. That is almost an 80% difference. I am a Bonney Lake resident serviced by TPU. My house is outside of the Bonney Lake actual boundaries, so make sure to understand the boundaries if you're thinking of moving here, because that water bill can be a shock to a lot of people if you are not prepared. You also have to keep in mind the cost of utilities really varies depending on so many different factors like I mentioned before, the size of your home, your usage habits, what time of year it is. So, the cost of electricity in Bonney Lake is pretty similar to the national average, but we also have natural gas. The cost of natural gas varies depending on the time of year and the weather. On average, residents of Bonney Lake should expect to pay somewhere about $80 a month for natural gas, if I were to imagine. All told, the cost of utilities in Bonney Lake aren't too bad. There is some additional fees that are included for things like garbage, recycling, yard waste. For many residents of Bonney Lake, the convenience and reliability of having access to these services outweighs the costs, but some people do prefer to do dump runs. Now let's talk about grocery and food costs. The index here is 102.7. According to Numbeo, the average cost of a basic grocery basket in Bonney Lake is $114. It really depends. It depends on what you're getting, and that's just for staples like bread, milk, eggs, and other things like that. Meat and dairy products can be a lot more expensive than in other areas. We have a lot of options to shop from, so if you're on a budget, you may want to consider that. But if you take a look at the cost for groceries here versus the cost in King County, you can see that we are on the low end of the scale, and that is a true statement, and which is also a huge plus. We do have some pretty basic food options, right? We have Safeway and Fred Meyer or Kroger. If you like specialty grocery stores, your only option really is to drive 20 minutes into Lake Tapps, or you can go to Buckley Foods or The Butcher. If you want to shop at a lower cost store, we do have things like Grocery Outlet or Walmart, which often have a lot lower prices on staple items, or we have Costco that lets you buy things in bulk. Okay, let's talk about the cost of dining. According to Numbeo, the average cost of a meal at a mid-range restaurant is about $15 a person. That's higher than the national average, but it's still pretty reasonable, right? We do have a lot of chain restaurants. Lots. Not joking. And a few smaller family-owned restaurants. There's quite a few options. Overall, the cost of groceries and food in Bonney Lake is similar to the national average, with some room for savings if you shop smart. Before I move on, if you are truly considering move to Washington, make sure to pick up a copy of my relocation guide from the description below, because it's going to tell you everything you need to know. Now, finally, transportation. Now, the cost of transportation here is 33% higher than anywhere else in the US. We are in suburbia. We're served by a single form of public transportation, which really isn't public transportation because it operates for the sole purpose of transporting commuters from the Bonney Lake bus station to the Sumner train station so they can get into Tacoma or Seattle. So really, it's not public transportation. Most people, 99.99% of people, have to rely on their vehicles to get around, which means that there is gas, insurance, and maintenance on the cars. Cost of gas in Bonney Lake is higher than the national average according to the American Automobile Association. They say the average price as of December 14th was $2.59 per gallon, and in Bonney Lake, the average price is about $4.67 a gallon. That's a lot more, right? Don't forget about the cost of vehicle insurance. Vehicle insurance is going to vary on tons of factors. Type of car you drive, what your driving record looks like, your age, everything like that. On average, the research I found was that you can expect to pay about $1,300 per year for car insurance. The thing that people don't think about a lot is the cost for license tabs. While the minimum fee to renew tabs for Washington State is $30, there is an additional $4.50 filing fee due to the DOL and other electronic processing fees if you choose to renew online. But that is not all. We in Bonney Lake have another tax on your vehicle called the RTA tax, or the Regional Transit Authority tax. Now, to give you a little bit of background about the RTA tax, it was a voter-approved tax that affected most major metropolitan areas of Pierce, King, and Snohomish counties. The RTA tax was implemented for a major transit expansion project for the Sounder commuter rail and express bus systems linking cities throughout central Puget Sound. Even though that RTA tax is intended for the entire Puget Sound region, here in Bonney Lake, we won't actually see it, but you do have to pay for it. 1.1% of your vehicle's MSRP is how they calculate that rate, and that goes based off of the vehicle make, model year, so it can be a lot. So let's assume your vehicle is worth $50,000. You have to pay an additional $550 when you renew your license tabs. So if you are wondering what type of vehicles we drive around town, according to the 2020 census data, the average household owns 2 vehicles. And what I see, there's a lot of SUVs around here. There's not too many electric vehicles. There's a lot more coming up, more more recently. We did buy an SUV here because of our proximity to Mount Rainier and the amount of snow that we get. There's also a lot of hills. So when it snows, your rear or front wheel drive vehicle is not too helpful. Trust me on this one, I see it all the time. There's a lot of SUVs. Finally, there's costs associated with maintaining your car, like oil changes, tire rotations, general repairs, all that stuff. The cost of maintenance can really depend on the make and model of your car, how often it's driven, all that stuff, right? Here's an average. You could expect about $1,000 per year on vehicle maintenance. All told, the cost of transportation in Bonney Lake can be quite high. In addition to the cost of gas, insurance, and maintenance, there are also the costs associated with your car loan. So there's that. Many residents of Bonney Lake love the convenience and flexibility of having their own vehicle, and it does outweigh the cost. If you are a busy professional and you are thinking about buying your next home, my team has put together a foolproof system to help you buy and sell your next home seamlessly. Connect with me today and let's discover if our system is right for you. I hope you got value from this video. If you did, make sure to hit subscribe so you can be in the know when I post my next video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.